And I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, I read that in the Louis Vuitton luxury index, cask whisky was the top of that index for 3 years running, averaging anywhere from 15 to 20% per annum. And they can do the whole 9 yards for you, vintage acquisitions. And that's what I particularly like.
That's very kind words. I mean, first of all, relationships are at the heart of everything we do. So, welcome to our first official podcast, Whisky Matters. We're incredibly excited to have Rod with us here today, who's a long-term customer and now a long-term friend of the business. Thank you for coming on, first of all.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. It's Monday morning, so we haven't got any whiskey to drink just yet. I think we'll leave that for an hour or so. But what I'd really like to start off with, if possible, is just to ask you a little bit about yourself, who you are and what your sort of background is.
Right. Okay, so by profession, I'm an ex-banker. I've retired from banking, and then I found, the pension doesn't go quite so far as I thought it would, so I've looked for other things to do. And after banking, which was more on the private banking side, which involves client relationships, I understand the value of a relationship. I understand the value of the relationship for myself, now being a client of certain people's businesses, be it pensions, be it alternative assets, of which I count whiskey as one. It's the relationship and the trust factor that brings that I like, that it makes me feel better. It makes me understand where I am, and it means I have a good rapport with the people that I'm dealing with. So after I spent quite a lot of time overseas, so I spent sort of 25 years in the Middle East, in and out of the Middle East, wow, which is an interesting place to be. From a drinking point of view, it has its own taboos, etc., but it's amazing the sort of versatility and the difference of type of people that you have there. And of course, the Middle East isn't barren from drinking anyway. It's only Saudi that is, and that might be changing soon. Who knows? There's a lot of talk about that, but definitely the UAE and Jordan, Oman, and other parts of the Gulf are warm to all the hospitality type ideas, and therefore you get a lot of consumers over there. So Middle East is quite important. I spent 7 years in Singapore, and I was just discussing with Sam earlier about the makeup of those investors in Singapore. They really do put the bottles on the table and they leave empty every single night. Brandy, whiskey, cognac, whatever it is, Armagnac probably as well. Yeah. But all these places, as I've sort of grown up and matured a little bit in the way I look at investments, I've seen what people do. And I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, I read that in the Louis Vuitton luxury index, cask whisky was the top of that index for 3 years running, averaging anywhere from 15 to 20% per annum. So I thought, well, hold on, I should look at this. And that intrigued me as well about the returns. It also has some very special qualities about whiskey investment, and that is tax status. It can be tax-free, et cetera, So I looked into it, and then I saw a few adverts around, cask whiskey investment, et cetera. So I thought, just out of good faith, I'll respond to one or two. I got some material sent back to me. And then there was a follow-up, a phone call. And I was expecting that. I thought, who's going to spend money on advertising if they're not going to follow up? And I know what it is like in sales. And perhaps many, many people listening to this know about sales because we're all salesmen of some ilk at the end of the day. Sure. So that's how I found Vintage Acquisitions. They invited me up to London into the offices we're in now. We're in their very fine tasting room. And, I just got that warm, fuzzy feeling that these are people that I could get to know. There is something behind the paper adverts and all the rest of it and all the Instagramming and stuff. And indeed, sitting here, I can see them all hard at work at their desk. There's a dealing desk and there's a sizable operation here. So that emboldens the, feeling of trust and credibility. And then, over the last few years, as I've been investing with them, they've developed certain things like they've got their bottling association or arm, so you can bottle your cask, you can sell your cask, you can do whatever you want. And they can do the whole 9 yards for you, Vintage Acquisitions. And that's what I particularly like. I don't have to go flogging around Scotland to sort of check on my stock. Vintage Acquisitions are putting up their own storage facility at quite some considerable expense. That gives me further sort of good feelings about credibility and whatever. They're investing heavily in Campbelltown, where they're going to move all their clients' casks to. And I gather that's a really good idea. And for me, it means I can go and see all my casks in one place. Not that I have that many, but maybe the portfolio grows over time, and I'm sure that's what they want. And as you learn more, you get more confidence in perhaps choosing different types of distilleries and different casks and whatever.
Sure.
So that's a little bit about me, but it's really the sort of trust and that sort of from the relationship point of view that warmed me to Vintage Acquisitions, to be honest.
Thank you very much. That's very kind words. I mean, first of all, relationships are at the heart of everything we do. You know, relationships are absolutely everything, I find, in all walks of life. So I just want to go back a little bit. So you've got a real good financial background. You're in the Middle East. Wow, you must have seen a huge amount of change in the time that you were there to now. It must have completely transformed. Because I know just myself, for the last time that I was really there on a regular basis was 2009. And then I didn't go for probably about 7 or 8 years. And then when I went back, I was just blown away at how much it had changed. So for you, it must be absolute colossal change.
A decade's almost like a century there.
Yeah.
You know, when you think we'd taken 400 or 500 years since the sort of golden ages of Elizabeth I or whatever, they've taken 40, perhaps 50 years to get to where they are.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's fantastic.
Amazing. Now, I know that you're a huge wine lover.
Right.
And I know that you have been, as am I.
Right.
You know, I'm a real passionate wine enthusiast as well. And you've been quite a successful collector for quite a number of years now. I know, obviously, you consume a fair amount of the wine that you buy, but I think you
the
also
stocks go down, unfortunately.
Which is, I mean, that's what it's there for, right? It's there to be drunk at the end of the day. But where you've sort of purchased wine in the past, you know, what's really sort of been your most successful purchase on the investment side, if you've got one that you could sort of pinpoint?
Okay, I'll answer that in two ways. I think it was much easier to invest in wine, red wine, obviously white wine's there as well, but red wine, particularly Bordeaux. I think 20, 25 years ago, there was a lot more in it for the punter through en primeur.
Yes.
I feel a lot of that's been taken away now, whether it's the brokers, whether it's the actual chateaus themselves charging up or whatever. But I remember, you know, 300, 200 quid 20 odd years ago got you a very fine case, some of which I've still got left. You know, you've got 2000s, 2003s, some 98s maybe, that sort of thing.
Big years, yeah.
But the money side of it is not so much more with the punter now. I think my 2010 Bordeaux, you know, one of the most spectacular years, they're still underwater, you know, sometimes by 25% on the top gross, on you know, the premier gross. And, you know, that to me after 10 years, I don't want to say it's unacceptable, because obviously the rarity value does come into it eventually, because more and more gets drunk and then you're left with less and less on the market. But that's been disappointing. But I think my best value for money investments, because I can drink them, would be the good old Chateau Talbot, Contamel, things of that nature. Contamel went down a little bit, but it'd be interesting to see what it's like. I've got some Dame de Montrose coming for next weekend. I'm looking forward to that. Phalanx Segor. You know, they're not all first gross, but they are affordable. They're drinkable. Very drinkable, especially 20 years later. Don't let the age put you off. Don't think you have to drink it at 6 or 7 years.
No.
It's damn good after 6 or 7 years. You know, it probably is the first window, but you can keep it a lot longer. Obviously, depending on the year and all that sort of thing. But if you get into buying it with a good company like the one down the road from here, which I've been with for 20 odd years. they'll work with you and they'll weed out the thinner years and the less good years in your portfolio as time goes on. And then it's a bit like whiskey. There's diversification in the distilleries. There's diversification in the types of barrel you use, be it sherry, Lafite, or Sauterne barrels, or whatever, or bourbon barrels, obviously. You can diversify more. So suddenly I thought, well, I better be buying some Burgundy because that was shooting up in price. So I think I caught a good moment at that, probably early 2000s. I started investing in Burgundy, and I haven't really bought much home. So, we got something for the future there.
Fantastic.
And then indeed, similar to whiskey, if there's ever a sort of dark period and you need to raise some capital, there's a fully fledged brokerage market there for resellers or whatever. I mean, I've done that many times because sometimes I ramp up a bit of a bill with the brokerage coming and they start knocking on the door. So you sell off some of the older cases. They take care of all that, obviously for a commission, but it's a seamless service. And I think, with yourselves in the whiskey, it's there. You buy a cask today, you can leave it for 20 days, 20 months, 20 years, but they're always there to help you and advise whether that's a good idea, or if you want to take a sample, if you just want to offload in the market. And you see that in the wine trade. You often get big portfolios suddenly all being up for grabs.
Yes.
Maybe that's someone's died, maybe someone's come a bit of a cropper in their business or whatever, but it's there and it's resellable and lucrative. You can get the price back. It's liquid. Best liquid assets are liquid.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, that's interesting. I think I saw the same in the wine market as well, that 2008, 2009, the market spiked, mainly due to Asia. And then I think the Bordelais got a little bit greedy and put their prices up en primeur. And then the market sort of dropped, and then it sort of flatlined for a long time. But I think you're right in what you're saying with regards to the real sort of value now being in the sort of fifth growth, fourth growth, third growth, second growth wines. Great to drink, but also you might see quite a bit of upside.
Very pleasurable to drink as well. And once you latch onto one, you'll see that other people start buying it, and that will start going up as well. Like Clos de Marquis, I think it was good at Chateau Forte. Now that's about 850, 900 pounds a case. It never was. But they have one brilliant year. Some punter writes about it, and off they go.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we digress, and we must get back to whiskey. That's the reason why we're here, and we created the podcast Whiskey Matters. So, were you always a whiskey fan, or not particularly? Have you become more sort of educated since you've been investing into casks? And was the sort of desire for you to purchase a cask linked to the same sort of tax benefits as the wine investment, be it sort of capital gains tax free if it's managed correctly?
Right. Yeah, no, I think the latter. I wasn't a great whiskey fan. I never really drank it in my youth. I think I drank too much of my father's at drinks parties, and then sort of developed a bit of an allergy, actually, funny enough, to the smell of it. Like, oh, I got it. That brings back memories that I don't really want to repeat. Thanks very much. But yeah, it was really the financial side of it, and seeing the Louis Vuitton Luxury Index, what they were saying about whiskey, and then seeing a plethora of information on whiskey. And obviously, based in the Middle East, I dealt with one or two of the firms there, and I was invited to Macallan dinners, etc., and the opening of the first sales of that 18-year-old sherry cask, which I remember well.
Wow.
And so slow education into it, but it's always been a question of investment for me. If I can drink it and want to drink it, it's a bonus. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with all the whiskey that I've got. So there's obviously a few hundred litres, I guess, now in casks, obviously ranging from 5 years up to about, I think, 11, 12. Obviously, I'd like to keep 1 to 15 so we can go through the whole cycle of cask to bottle to selling and see what that's like, and making sure I understand that and seeing how it goes so I can be more proficient in how I talk to people about my experience within it as well. Because one of the things as an investment advisor, not that I like to call myself advisor because that's regulatory issues, but introducer, is that did you do it? Have you done it yourself? Are you invested in that? And if you can say yes, that that counts for a lot.
Of course, yeah.
And what I really like about the whiskey, you know, there is a whole investment theme there. There is a whole drinking theme to there. And there's a whole security theme to it as well. You have the underlying asset. So if there is a problem or the company has a problem, it's ring-fenced in their balance sheet or from their own balance sheet for you, and therefore you can go and trade elsewhere. So it's got all the elements of a good investment.
Yeah.
And obviously one of the main things for whiskey investment is giving it time.
Yes.
You know, the older it is and the closer you get it to 40%, probably the more money you're going to make if that's your desire at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If you don't need the money, you can always bottle it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you've got 200 odd bottles, do you want them all yourself, or you give them away as presents, or sell some and drink some?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that you touched on earlier is you know, the sort of the 360 proof of concept that we've now got here, where we can sell people casks. They can store it with us at Campbelltown Bond. We'll be accepting casks there at Q1 2024. And you know, you can bottle it through us as well, should you so wish, and you can get involved in some of the events that we put on through the Vintage Whisky Club.
Yeah, that's
which I think you've been on a few now. Have you found those enjoyable? Have you found that sort of beneficial to sort of gaining some more knowledge about whiskey, or have you just mainly found it having a good time with like-minded people?
I think the latter, like-minded, with like-minded people and great fun. And you invited me to 2 or 3 of the Six Nations last year. And that's great, because otherwise you've got to get around to getting the tickets yourself. And if you're not a member of a club, it's quite difficult. And then who am I going to invite? Who am I going to take? Are they going to pay for their own ticket? No, probably not. And then they're ill on the day. And so you're Harry No Mates sitting in the stand by yourself. Yeah. Whereas with you guys, it's a party. It's great. We have a few Guinnesses and off we go and watch a good game, and then we end up with a bit of whiskey afterwards. That's where I was introduced to the Isle of Arran, I think it was, and probably the Port Charlotte, and also the Secret Series 1 or 2.
I think you're right.
I think it was.
Yes.
And those are good occasions. And what's really nice is, I mean, not that you don't want to say it's free, but you're really enjoying yourselves as well. All the tables are full. So you're not trying to scrimp on it at all. You know, you're saying, enjoy your lunch, have a few tots, and we'll see you next week, and we'll follow up with you in need. And I think it's a really good idea. I also went to Lord's with you, I think, for the Indian test a couple of years ago. That was fun as well.
That's right,
It's really good.
I think we've got Sri Lanka this next year.
24.
So that should be good. Hopefully we'll get some tickets for that as well.
Sure.
No, absolutely. I mean, it comes back to the whole sort of building relationships, and we find that there's no better way to build a relationship than seeing people face to face, whether that's here in the whiskey bar and having a whiskey tasting and trying to educate people on the whiskey and how the market works, or whether it's just going out and having a bit of fun and leaving the whiskey chat behind. And just getting to know people over a fantastic game of rugby or a game of golf or whatever it might be. So I'm really pleased you've enjoyed those.
No, it was great, and we've done the golf in Dubai as well, which was fun. Not that I participated that day, but certainly a good lunch and good chats with prospective clients and everything. No, it's good. I think what you're doing is opening the envelope, building it out, and allowing a lot of people to understand this investment theme if they want to invest, or this drinking theme, whatever you want to call it. So, Sam, you mentioned these podcasts, but what brought you to design this series? What's in it for you, I suppose?
Good question. I mean, first of all, I didn't realise they were going to be filmed, and I know that I've got a face for radio, not television, so that was one reason. But no, the main reason is that we want to get various different people onto the podcast. So we want some of our customers on the podcast. Right. We want some influential people from the industry on the podcast. So we can get various different opinions of the market in general. We can air any questions that people might have or concerns that people might have for the listeners. And people can really sort of, it's an open forum to just ask absolutely anything. Hopefully I'll get educated by the people that come on, clients and other people within the industry, and hopefully at some point I can help educate some people that come on and the listeners alike.
Okay, so you're building the confidence of those that are not too sure about the industry, but as you speak to them, they get more confidence, and therefore they could well invest with you.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusing information out on the internet at the moment.
Right.
Some people are trying to discredit the cask market. And in all markets, unfortunately, there are unscrupulous companies that set up and do tend to give the market a bad name, and that happens in everything. That happens in insurance, stocks and shares, property. You know, any
we read about it quite a lot at the moment.
Yeah,
don't we?
any market that does well, but I think it's quite one-sided at the moment, because there are a lot of companies out there like ourselves that are doing a good job. And we are servicing our clients, and our clients are getting a good service, and they are making money from the casks that they purchase, and they are quite able to exit the market very, very easily.
Okay.
And we are doing a sort of a 360 approach to the whiskey market. You know, we're not just cask traders. We've got 3 other companies, whiskey companies. So it's an opportunity to answer and maybe put right some of the disinformation that's out there in the market, and I think that will be helpful for potential people that are maybe looking to invest but aren't quite sure. And also it helps us get our story across as well at the same time.
Okay, good.
Now, one thing that I know we mentioned before we came onto the podcast was that you obviously got a vast wine portfolio, and you went to see your cases of wine. We won't mention where they were held, but unfortunately they weren't all in one place, and some of them weren't yours, or some of them were missing from what you were told was going to be there. Not that there's any doubt in your mind that they're not there. I'm almost 100% sure that they are there.
Sure.
It's just a shame that they weren't all in one place. One good thing with Campbelltown Bond will be that all of your casks, and at the moment they're scattered around various different HMRC approved excise warehouse accounts throughout Scotland, will be able to be transported to Campbelltown Bond, where they'll be maturing 500 metres or less than 500 metres from the Atlantic Sea. So they'll take on that saline, salty characteristic that most of us know and love in whiskey.
Okay.
But also, you know, when you do want to visit, you know, we can make sure that they're all in one place for you. We can roll them out. You can draw a sample from them yourself, and then sort of pour it out and enjoy it with family or friends in a nice, comfortable tasting room. So it certainly will be, you know, fantastic to have a tangible asset that you actually can come and see, feel, touch, and taste. You know, all in one place, and that's the whole reason why we've built Campbelltown Bond, to allow our customers to do that. So, and I'm looking forward to welcoming you there, because there's a couple of fantastic golf courses.
So I gather,
there's obviously you've got 3 major distilleries there: Springbank, Glen Scotia, and Glengyle, and there's also planning, I believe, for about another 4 or 5 distilleries that are going to be popping up there. So it really is, and it's a beautiful place as well. So I'm looking forward to welcoming you.
I know where it is on the map. You know, it's right down on the left-hand side. So it'd be interesting getting to parts of Scotland otherwise you wouldn't get to.
Exactly. I mean, there's white sandy beaches. I mean, you know, if you had the weather, which you do get about 2 days of the year.
Well, if you don't get the weather, you get the sea spray for the whiskey. So
this is it, right?
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, this is it. So good stuff.
I didn't realise that the saltiness and the salinity that comes from the breed was so important to whiskey, actually.
Yeah.
So if you're moving them all to that's even better. I mean,
absolutely.
A pure positive, I think you called it last time.
Yeah, because the thing is, there might be a number of casks that would never normally be matured by the sea. Because where the distillery is situated, it might be right bang in the middle of the Highlands, you know, 100 miles
rather than the sea.
100 miles or so. Or they could be situated next to a motorway, which you know, potentially you don't want your whiskey maturing there. But because wood is porous and it allows the spirit to breathe, so hence the reason for the angel share. You know, that everybody knows about or should know about. You know, which could be it can be anything up to about 2% loss of the bulk litres that are inside the cask. It's rarely as much as that, but it can be. But it also takes on its environment. So, for instance, if you put a cask of whiskey in Billingsgate Fish Market and you left it there for 10, 20 years, the whiskey would taste of fish.
You will get that waft.
You would definitely have.
Fingers,
You definitely would have a fishy characteristic to the whiskey.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, so the benefit of having all of these casks, from various different distilleries from all over Scotland, maturing in one place next to the sea, it will essentially give some of those barrels and casks a unique flavour that they would never have had before. So that we're really excited about that. So that's good. So I mean, just to sort of sum things up, you're into financial markets. You know all of the different investments that are out there.
Right.
But you've got a real love for sort of alternative assets that make sense.
Yeah.
And something that you can enjoy. And obviously the tax-free element, if managed correctly, is a real
and
sort
there's
of bonus.
also the inheritance tax opportunity as well, because I think with an asset which you might be thinking, to really get the best out of this, I've got to keep it for 20, 30 years. That makes difficult decisions easier. You might have 6 or 7 grandkids and you might only have 5 casks. Well, I might get a couple more, so they each get one, and you graduate them in terms of time and diversify in terms of wood or the cask. I think it gives you a good planning tool. And I think, everybody wants a little bit of help with their decisions sometimes, and I think that can come into play.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's our bread and butter business. People purchasing for children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, godchildren, because whiskey casks are seen as such a good long-term investment. Because if you buy one young, a barrel could easily last sort of 30 years. A hogshead, which is 250 litres, because it could easily last sort of 40 years. And a butt, which is 500 litres in capacity, could easily last 50 plus years if it's looked after and in the right environment. So these things are ideal for children and grandchildren. Obviously, we're not tax experts, so we would always suggest, on the capital gains tax-free side of things and the inheritance tax-free side of things, to seek independent tax advice from a tax expert or an accountant. But if it's managed correctly, I believe there are a number of benefits to it. So the last time we were here in this office, you tried some of Vintage Bottlers whiskies.
I did indeed.
Some of the award-winning ones. I think you actually bought a couple of bottles and took them away with you. But
I did indeed.
What was your sort of standout favourite?
Well, that day we actually were very, very lucky and were allowed to taste the marriage. Which I don't think you allow everybody to do, because that's finite and extremely expensive.
Yes.
But I bought a couple of bottles of the Port Charlotte 21-year-olds and took those home on the train, and now they're waiting in the house for consumption possibly, or just longevity. What did we taste? Isle of Arran.
I think you might have tasted the Isle of Arran and possibly one of the Secret series as well. Might have been the Glenlivet 29-year-old.
Okay, I've tasted all of those at different events overall, because we had one down in Twickenham as well. We had 2 bottles on the table that day.
That's it. Yeah.
Isle of Arran and I think the Glenleash or the
That's
one.
That's it. Yeah, Secret Series 1.
Not Glenleash, but could be.
Yeah. Well, we can tell everyone it's Glenleash. We just can't put it on the label.
And that's all gone now. That's all fully sold.
That's fully sold out. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
And have you got a Secret Series 4 coming now?
So we've got Secret Series 1, which was the Glenleash 30-year-old sherry cask. We had the Secret Series. So that was from the Highlands. So we're going around all the regions basically to complete the series. We did a Secret Series 2 from Speyside, which was a 29-year-old Glenlivet single cask. Yeah. That was an ex-bourbon cask, so completely different style of whiskey, but beautiful all the same. Yeah. So the Glenleash Secret Series 1 got a gold medal at the World Whisky Awards 2023. The Secret Series 2, the 29-year-old Glenlivet, got a silver medal at the World Whisky Awards 2023. The third one that we've just released from Islay is a 32-year-old Lafroig, a single cask. That has been entered into the World Whisky Awards 2024. So we'll find out. I'm sitting on the judging panel in December. We're up at the Balmoral Hotel in Edinburgh to do the tastings up there for the Scotch. And then we are down at the Caledonian Club in February to taste the rest of the whiskies from around the world, and the results will be out in March. So we're pretty positive that hopefully we'll get a medal on that one. And then all we've got to find now is a secret series from Campbelltown, which is going to be a bit tricky because there's only three. Yeah, there's only three there at the moment. We need one from the islands, so maybe something from sort of Tobermory or Highland Park, Scapa, the Isle of Skye, obviously, Talisker. Again, that might be tricky to get. And then one from the Lowlands. So we got three more to complete the series, and then once that's done, I think that'll be quite a handsome collection. Obviously to drink, but obviously possibly as an investment over time. So if there was one point or maybe one or two points of the reasons why you invested into whiskey and what really attracted you, that would be interesting for me.
Okay, I think from my point of view, what attracted me to it was the returns that I saw in the luxury index that I mentioned earlier. So as an ex-banker, or now a sort of a semi-retired one where I do investment introductions to people, I thought this could be quite interesting because firstly, and it's proven to be, because firstly you talk to people about investments and they start glazing over after a time. And then you say, well, the one I particularly want to mention to you is cask whiskey. They're fully awake again, and that's new. Oh, I haven't heard of that. Why would I invest in cask whiskey? How do you do that? And I said, well, and then I can go through the whole patter of, it's got to be at least 3 years old and it's got to be at least 40%. And then you can expunge a little bit of knowledge to them. And, it's all correct information. And they go, oh, that's quite interesting. And the returns speak for themselves. So I think one thing I would say to people, it's quite easy to get into. You're not talking hundreds of thousands of pounds the whole time. Yes, you're talking quite a big quantity of liquid, which is going to turn into a single cask opportunity for you to bottle. But if you can get in for say £3,500 per cask, you can save £300 a month. If you're doing all right at work and you've got that and your rent's covered and you've got your car, start always try and save 10% of your salary. That's what I say to youngsters and anybody really who might be on the investment trail a little bit later. And you'll find if you take care of that £300, that £300 compound will take care of you, especially in some of the investments you might want to do, such as cask whiskey. We had one investor the other day, didn't we, who I think was only 32. She's done quite well. She's got a bit of surplus. Well, cash wasn't getting you anything. Now it's getting you a little bit more, but it wasn't getting you anything. So you're only 32. Why don't you put something down that you can start maturing in 15, 20, 25, even 30 years? If you can keep it that long or even longer, then you'll be in the real money side of it. So always think you can save. You might not, it's certainly not for you if you've got debts and credit card stuff and your car's breaking down. You don't want to have to go and sort of liquidate your cask every week or whatever. But if you can sensibly save up, this might put a lot of people off, but I know, to invest in a Bowmore cask or something is as similar as 10 Glastonbury tickets. Maybe they're, I want to go to Glasgow. But, that's what it amounts to or equates to. You can do it if you want to.
I think you're right. I think you touched on a really good point there that, this market isn't suitable for everybody. We get quite a lot of people that phone up that, that unfortunately it's just not suitable for them. And we've got a duty of care to be able to establish who's right for this market and who's not. If you've saved up £3,500 over the last 5 years, and it's all the money that you've got in the world, I would say that this market isn't right for you. Because yes, you can, you're not tying your money up for a period of time where you can't access it, because if you bought a cask today and you sold it, needed to sell it next week, that's perfectly feasible. We can do that. but obviously there's fees involved.
Yeah.
And so anybody that really is putting money into a cask, whether it's £3,500 or whether it's £350,000,
Yeah.
I would say you need to be thinking of leaving that money there for at least a minimum of 5 to 10 years. Yeah, 5 years to really see the growth on it, because like you mentioned earlier, we can't speed up the maturation process. It takes as long as it takes.
Yeah.
But it is a kind of armchair, low maintenance investment where you can just sit back and know that the whiskey inside that cask is naturally improving and becoming rarer as it gets older, and that over time should just naturally push the price up, as it has done over the last sort of 13 years we've been trading.
And there's no reason to say why it shouldn't continue.
Exactly.
In fact, that the future looks very bright for whiskey.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're getting the whiskey at the right price, and it's stored in the optimum conditions, which is essentially just a fairly low temperature,
right?
Because the higher the temperature, the quicker the angels share.
Increases,
and as long as it's well looked after and it's in good wood, and you're having regular re-gauges of the cask, which is like your sort of MOT, if you like, for the cask, a health check. So it's checking on the evaporation and how quickly that's happening. As long as you get that done every 3 to 5 years when you're advised by the cask company, you should be absolutely fine, and you can sit back and relax. But it's good stuff. So listen, I'm really pleased. Everything's going well so far.
Thank you.
And that you're being well looked after, and you're a fantastic client of ours. We're really, really pleased to have you on board. And thank you so much for giving up your time to do our first podcast.
Well, let's hope it's a good one.
No, I think it's
rounded off secret series of podcasts, right?
No, I think it's gone. I think it's gone really, really well. And these podcasts are to chat about whiskey in general, and talk to our clients again, and answer any sort of questions that come up from listeners or our clients alike, and hopefully we can air out some of the points that aren't necessarily mentioned in some of our literature.
Right.
But anyway, thank you so much indeed, Rod.
No, thank you, Sam. Well, thanks for the opportunity.
Good stuff.
Okay.
And mate, I think I owe you a bit of lunch then, maybe.
Well, always very gratefully received. Thank you. Fantastic.
All right, good stuff. Thank you
No
very
problem.
much indeed. Thank you.
Nice to be here. Bye.